Okay, so didn't expect to be back this soon, but this is another edition of All Hell No. While I'm minding my business, which I, for the most part, try to continue to do, comes across the newscaster early in the wee hours of this morning discuss reparations. And specifically, now this is for all of my Chi-Town people, you will know this area for sure. So, Evanston, Illinois. All right. So, those of you from Chicago, you know Evanston is a suburb of Chicago, and it is actually a wealthy suburb. Um, and this came off of ABC News. Illinois city first in the U.S. to offer black residents reparations. So this came out literally this morning. Evanston, Illinois, using tax money from the sale of recreational marijuana. The Chicago suburb of Evanston has become the first U.S. city to make reparations available to its black residents for past discrimination and lingering effects of slavery. The city council on Monday voted 8-1 to begin making good on its pledge to distribute $10 million over the next 10 years, with the distribution of $400,000 to eligible black households. Each qualifying household would receive $25,000 for home repairs, down payments on property, and interest or late penalties on property in the city. The move by the Illinois community comes as hundreds of communities and organizations across the country are considering providing reparations. In Evanston, besides revenue from a 3% tax on the sale of recreational marijuana, a small portion of the money, $21,340, is coming to the city in private donations. I would just love to know who these alleged and supposed private donors are. But anyhow, qualifying residents must either have lived in or been a direct descendant of a black person who lived in Evanston between 1919 to 1969, or that person's direct descendants who suffered discrimination in housing because of city ordinances, policies, or practices. Also, residents who has experienced discrimination due to the city's policies or practices after 1969 can qualify. Alderman Robert Ruth Simmons, who proposed the program that was adopted in 2019, said groups in support of reparations have offered pro bono legal assistance if the program is challenged in court. This is set aside for an injured community that happens to be black that was injured by the city of Evanston for anti-black housing policies, Simmons said. At the same time, Simmons suggested that the money is just a start to right the wrongs of the past. We all know that the road to repair and justice in the black community is going to be a generation of work, Simmons said. It's going to be many programs and initiatives and more funding. The city council acted after dozens of citizens addressed the body, and the plan received some pushback from several. Alderman Cicely Fleming, the lone vote against the plan, said she supports reparations, but what the city council was debating is a housing plan that is being called reparations. She said the people should dictate the terms of how their grievances are repaired. Fleming decided the program as paternalistic and it assumes black people can't manage their own money. Other communities and organizations considering providing reparations range from the state of California to cities like Elmhurst, Massachusetts, Providence, Rhode Island, Asheville, North Carolina, and Iowa City, Iowa. Religious denominations like the Episcopal Church and prominent colleges like Georgetown University in Washington. The efforts, some of which have been underway for years, have gained momentum in the wake of the death of George Floyd in police custody last May in Minneapolis. President Joe Biden has even expressed support for creating a federal commission to study Black reparations, a proposal that languished for decades in Congress. All right, so just again, this article literally came out early this morning. This is from ABC News, and the title of the article is Illinois City First in the U.S. to Offer Black Residents Reparations. Now, this is the Reparations Deception. I've talked about this before, and I'm going to continue to bring it up because we are in a crossroad where folk are trying to do a massive blanketed payoff. And the payoffs that is suggested, number one, would not even begin to compensate. And number two, what they are claiming they're paying out for is not the accurate depiction of what happened, right? So we've talked about this before, that when you go into slavery, you as the one that are claiming your ancestors were enslaved and they were brought over here enslaved in chains, you have to prove that. Now, if you can prove that, by all means, do you go for yours. But to make the assumption that everyone that is, quote, quote, melanated, Black, dark skin, that has been put on the label of African American fits that bill is false. Everyone has to prove that they descended from slaves, because guess what? You have white folks whose family members were slaves. So this whole discussion of having a blanket solution for slavery based on skin tone is false out the gate. That's number one. That's a huge issue right there. Number two, what payout are they I haven't really heard any money. Let's say that your ancestors really did come over here in chains, and you had to work the land, they had to work the land rather, for free for hundreds of years. Is $25,000 going to cut that? To right that wrong of what happened to your ancestors? I've heard $25,000. I've heard as high as $100,000. Is that going to right the wrong for your ancestors being stripped of your culture, being brought over to the Americas, living generation after generation after generation in poverty? Is $100,000 going to right that wrong? Now let's get to the other side of the coin, which are the people that were already here in the Americas, whose ancestors lost their land, or their land was stolen, which is more appropriate, through war and colonization. Where's that discussion? Okay? Because we have the proof that many melanated people that have been reclassified as Negro and Afro-American ancestors were already on the land. Where's that discussion? How can you even put that group of people into a reparations discussion regarding slavery with the payout? The highest I've heard is $100,000. That doesn't make sense to me when my ancestors, and that's if your bloodline lineage ties back to being indigenous to the Americas, how can $100,000 right the wrong of their ancestors' land, our ancestors' land, being taken and still being used to this day when we are not benefiting? And as the one lady in Evanston, I think she brought up an excellent point. She brought up the point, and many people have brought up the point. This Alderman Cicely Fleming says she doesn't support it because she said the people or the victims should be the ones to dictate the terms. So in other words, no one needs you to say, okay, yep, this is the amount of money that you're owed. Okay, let's get it out the way. No, that's not how this story will end, America, nor any of the cities across the Americas. You know exactly what you're trying to do. You know that the forming of all of these cities, these counties, these states, provinces, will include Canada in there with the provinces. You know that all of this stuff was set up under perpetual fraud. You are literally on stolen land. You have set up commerce. You are currently doing business on stolen land. And the rightful heirs of the land, the caretakers of the land, are not benefiting from the land. Now, if you go and do a quick search on what homes are selling for in Evanston, okay, so Evanston is like kind of northwest of Chicago, and it's pretty much close to the lake. So very beautiful area, prime property in Chicago if you're close to the lake, Lake Michigan. You can go do a quick home search and you're going to see prices ranging from the mid 300,000s all the way up to multi-million. So you mean to tell me $25,000 is supposed to help be some form of reparation payment when the average home price, we'll put it at $600,000, at the low end, the mid threes? You're trying to tell me that $25,000 is going to compensate fairly. And let's just go with the argument that they're making here of former slaves. Or if your folks lived in that area between 1919 and 1969, and mind you, slavery was over in 1865. So why they chose the dates of 1919 to 1969 for this package, this beautiful package deal of $25,000, sends a question in my mind right there. I'm giving you the side eye on that. So you mean to tell me that $25,000 is supposed to compensate for discrimination? These are the half-hearted conversations that are being had about reparations. And the reason that they're half-hearted is, of course, twofold. Number one, the obvious is they just simply don't want to do it. And the second part of the puzzle, and the most important piece, which they don't want the world to know or become acutely aware of, is the fact that it's not about the descendants of slaves, although they are owed, without a shadow of a doubt, they are owed. Folks that are descendants of slaves, absolutely you're owed. But what they're really hiding is the true landowners, the true heirs of the land in the Americas are still here. They're still here. So that would totally bankrupt the system of commerce in the United States or the United States Corporation, which will have to happen in order to move on. Then there's a different conversation of who is really going to make the decisions on what happens to the land. It certainly won't be at the state level. It certainly won't be at the federal level. It certainly wouldn't be at the county level or the local level. It would go back to the heirs. Okay? So all of this talk about reparations is just another ploy to calm down, number one, melanated people, give them something to pacify them. And I am cautioning melanated people once again, if you are saying your family, they are descendants of slaves, you better be able to back it up. Okay? And also note, once you put yourself and your bloodline in the category of being a descendant of a slave or slaves, which that's fine if that is your heritage. You have done the research, you know that for sure, that's your heritage. But if that is not your heritage, or if you do not know that is your heritage, you are in essence talking your bloodline off of any claim that you could possibly have as heirs to land in the Americas. So folks need to really wake up, become informed, do their research, be aware. These folks are not playing games with you. They are trying to pull the wool over your eyes. They're putting out these different reparations discussions, different packages to keep doing what they have always done. Illegally squatter on someone else's land. To continue to benefit from the natural resources of the land, to continue to do commerce on the land, tax-free, no obligation to the true heirs and caretakers of the land, which are the indigenous people of the Americas who were reclassified as Negro, colored, and African American. So this is a caution to melanated people specifically. Get your house in order. You have to know who you are. If you are putting claims in, number one, you claim that African American, you have essentially talked your bloodline off of the land if you are indigenous to the land. Okay? So this is why it's going to take research on your part to get your family lineage in line. Also, those of you that are claiming the African American, please note these reparations discussions, mark my words, Caucasians will also be able to claim reparations. Because the fact of the matter is, there were white slaves, whether or not you want to say they were Slavs or indentured servants, which is really more accurate, there were. So that means they're entitled to a claim also. All right? So it is really time for everyone to open their eyes. Everyone. Because at the end of the day, this isn't for the benefit of the melanated people. It isn't even for the benefit of Caucasians. It's for the benefit of the corporation. And the sooner folks open their eyes and be honest with themselves that this is about the corporation, the corporate fiction, commerce, and revenue, the better off they will be. So I hope this helps someone. I did want to bring this to the family's attention. Like I said, I saw it literally at 3 o'clock this morning, and I knew it wasn't going to be talked about on mainstream media any further, so I had to go dig up the article. So I wish you all well. Have a great day, family. Peace and love.